Hi everyone, welcome back to Roll With Us. Today we'll be talking about how we resumed travel, how we resumed going out, moving around. So after the accident happened, like all of you know by now, Adeep got into a wheelchair. How did we start moving out again? And baby steps from, moving out little bit here and there around. And then finally, how we got traveling from road trips to domestic travels to international travels. Enjoy this video and we hope it will be fun and informative.
So everybody grab your green teas as we get on this journey. After my spinal cord injury, one of the biggest challenges was to move out of the house. The transfer from wheelchair to car is absolutely essential in being able to achieve that. I remember when I was in Indian Spinal Injury Center at Vasant Kunj in May 2013. Some of my friends came over to visit me in the hospital and they suggested that we go out for a meal.
Like they just came to meet us and they were like, chalo, let's go out somewhere. Paas mein chalte hain.
It was just around that time that I was learning how to transfer into a car as part of my rehabilitation. And this was the first sort of real use of that skill. I remember I was quite apprehensive. I was very unsure, but everybody was very supportive and encouraging. I decided, okay, it can't be that bad. Let's take this chance to actually move out. I got transferred into the car and then we drove by. Yeah, we had our meal. I can't remember where we went. Was it Mama Goto?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. It's too far back.
It was lunch out basically.
Yeah, after lunch we came back. I think it would have taken us somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours. That was the first time I actually got out in a more social setting. Up until then I had only been either in the house or in the hospital. It was a very, very nice feeling to actually be able to go out and do things we did pre-accident life.
This was the first time, like 5 months after the accident, that we ever stepped out for a casual outing.
Yeah, we weren't stepping out for a doctor's appointment or physiotherapy. So that was interesting. There I learned that the car transfer is one of the most important things if you want to start moving around. Over the next few months, we started to go out more often. We would mainly go out to the mall for two reasons. One, that there was actually a wheelchair accessible parking, and two, that the mall is accessible. And they have a wheelchair accessible toilet, which if I need to use, I can. As we did more and more of these visits, the car shifting became second nature and it was a common exercise. Basically, after lying down on the bed for nearly 6 months, the body was not used to sitting. My muscles were very weak and I would get tired very quickly. As we started doing more of these outings, I would extend my sitting time so that my back gets used to longer sitting hours. That was good not only from the purpose of just going out, but also Disha actually being able to get out of the house, not being stuck with me. For me also it was a change, but also preparing for bigger things that could happen in future, i.e. going to the office and sitting for 8 hours. So this was all in preparation to be able to actually step out and start to move to close to normal life as possible.
So as Adeep started sitting for longer, from few minutes to an hour to 2 hours, then we started going out for movies or for shows, plays, जहाँ भी wheelchair access होता था. Once we went to Kingdom of Dreams to see Jhumru. Yeah, so this was again another step towards normalcy.
So after being able to do sort of local trips within Delhi for a day, we decided that we want to try a night out. And my brother was gracious enough to gift us a couple of evenings at Westin Sona. So that was awesome. We used to live in Gurgaon at that time and we were taking two parameters into account. The first is that the place needs to be fully wheelchair accessible. So Disha contacted the resort and figured all of that out. The second was that we wanted something that's close enough that if there's an emergency, we should be able to return home. Those two boxes were checked and so we decided to make a trip of it. I think this was 2014.
Yeah, I think so. We drove to Westin Sona. It was just an hour or so drive from where we were staying at that time. We had a really wonderful weekend at Westin Sona. We had basically 2 nights and 3 days. पहले दिन क्या हुआ कि जिस रूम में हमें ठहराया था वहाँ पे suddenly the AC conked off. It was summers at that time. So obviously after talking to the staff and all, we told them that these are the medical challenges for a person who's immobile. So yeah, there was a challenge initially. And we got a bit thrown off that, this is the first time we've come out and now what to do. It took them a day to figure this out. So one full day we were in that room. But then the next day they upgraded us to a higher room with some complimentary meals and all. So that day we made the most of it and really had a good time. They had some activity like table tennis and all, which Adeep could also play. And we were just roaming around, clicking pictures, sitting by the pool. Next day we drove back. And this really gave us the next level of confidence that हाँ ये कर सकते हैं. It's not that challenging, it's not impossible. It also opened up our minds to traveling and also familiarized us with what all we should keep in mind next time. So after the Western Sona trip, which was still a very short close by trip, the next trip which we took was in 2015. And this was a proper like full-fledged road trip, a 6-7 hour drive, and this was to Corbett. Basically जो physiotherapist है हमारे विक्रम, he suggested to us कि why don't you go to Corbett? So we said that's too far, कैसे करेंगे?
It was quite scary because we had not done a drive that long. And guess what he turns around and tells me? अरे अदीप क्या हो गया? कर लियो ना, मैं हूँ तेरे साथ. I was like okay. So yeah, that's how he talks.
And he actually offered to come with us. So
Yeah.
he said कि चलो मैं लेके चलता हूँ. एक बार I'll come with you, then you'll know कि कैसे घूमने जाना है.
Correct.
With the wheelchair. He actually accompanied us on that trip, and so we were 5 of us.
6 of us.
6 of us.
Yeah.
So Adeep, me, Adeep's brother, and Vikram, a physiotherapist, a friend of his, and Adeep's caregiver.
Yeah.
So 6 of us, we drove to Corbett. It was a very fun road trip. One thing I really love about road trips is, you know, stopping at the dhabas and having chai, having the dhaba ka khana. The Corbett पहुंचे तो it was around afternoon, which was already time for the first safari. Safari कैसे जाए? Because next challenge was कि jeep में Adeep कैसे बैठेगा?
So shifting into a Jeep is very different from shifting into your sedans okay, because of the height. Further, the leg space is much less as compared to regular cars. In terms of getting into the Jeep, what they did was quite simple. Vikram and my caregiver just lifted me and put me on the seat.
Since it was a safari, it would be quite an uneven terrain and a lot of bumps and jerks. So we secured all the area around his legs with enough cushions and pillows.
Then we zoomed off to the safari. And it was an amazing experience to get out of the city and actually be, in the wilderness. It was phenomenal. Just the breath of fresh air, the silence, you just with few people whom you really want to enjoy with. It was a great experience.
And it was really lucky that we spotted a tigress.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
तो पहले ही दर्शन से एकदम सफल हो गया कॉर्बेट का ट्रिप.
Then I remember they had given us a room which was slightly far away from all of the other rooms because this other room was bigger and it had the space to move the wheelchair in and out. The way into the room was not straightforward. Both Disha and I were slightly baffled at the situation. And again, our physiotherapist looked at us and he's like, "Abey, isme kya hai? Ye to ho jayega." So we were like, okay. He and the caregiver actually got me down the steps, through the whatever passage, and then up the steps into the room. That was the first time we actually saw what all we have to do.
What all are the possibilities? अगर wheelchair access नहीं भी हो, तो it's not like that कि बिल्कुल कहीं जा ही नहीं सकते.
All you need is a wide enough door, wide enough steps, and a passage that can get you to wherever you want. On that trip, I learned how we can actually ask people, and if you can explain to them what has to be done, then it can be done. You can actually go places which seem difficult, with the caveat that we believe that this is doable safely. We never compromise safety, but at the same time, we're also adventurous enough to go and try stuff out. So that was an amazing trip. We had a bonfire in the evening. That was awesome, I remember.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the river.
I think they had a guitar, so Adeep was playing, and
Yeah,
we were all singing and dancing around the bonfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then next day, Vikram decided to go to the river.
So there was this river
Which is
running
good.
right behind the hotel. The first day, without Adeep, the rest of us had gone, 5 of us had gone,
Yeah.
and Adeep was in the room resting. And then we are all like, Adeep also needs to come here. So how do we make that happen? Because the wheelchair cannot be brought down here. So then Vikram actually spoke to the hotel staff, arranged a jeep which would take all of us as close to the riverbed as possible.
And then he basically decided to pick me up, he and the caregiver, and they took me right into the river and they put me there on a rock. And yeah, he said he was very sure that I need to enjoy these things in life. I should not just be sitting in my wheelchair watching things at a distance. And that was a kind of life-changing moment where I suddenly realized, actually I don't have to be confined in the way that I think I've been confined, which means that I've been confined here, not here, right? That was like a light bulb moment for me.
At every point we were like, oh, अच्छा ये भी कर सकते हैं,
Yeah.
अच्छा ये भी कर सकते हैं, अच्छा ऐसे कर सकते हैं. तो ऐसे धीरे-धीरे समझ आता गया कि क्या-क्या कर सकते हैं.
Correct. So suddenly it starts to become clear what your possibilities are. What starts to become more clear is that you actually define those possibilities for yourself. And more often than not, things are possible if you're willing to give it a shot. The only question is, how do you give it a shot safely? And I think You have to step out of your comfort zone and learn some of that. You will end up making some mistakes. You will get hurt once in a while, and that's okay, you know. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be leading a very dull, confined life, and that's no fun. So yeah, go out, do the wild stuff.
Yeah. So basically, ऐसे करते करते from one road trip to the other, we kept going for more trips around 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and we went to Rishikesh also. I remember. So अब ये हमें comfortable हो गया था, समझ आ गया था road trip कैसे करना है, क्या क्या सामान लेके जाना है, what all to find out from the resort beforehand, what all arrangements to make. So we were pretty comfortable now. We were really beginning to enjoy ourselves, to be able to go around and explore.
Yeah. So after we were able to travel locally, we thought we need to do a flight and get kind of used to that. So we spoke to Vikram, and he told us that he had recently trained the Indigo staff in how to handle disabled people.
That was the only airline at that time who were making an effort to get familiar with the challenges of disabled passengers and the requirements of disabled passengers.
So we were very sure we need to take an Indigo flight. The next question was, where do we travel to? The only constraint in India was that most places are not wheelchair friendly enough. There were two constraints on the location. First, that it should be close by. It should not be a very long haul flight. And then the second, that the place needs to be, wheelchair friendly. To tick both those boxes, it seemed like Dubai was a good place. And so in 2016, we decided to go to Dubai. So when we booked the flights with Indigo, they were gracious enough to give us the front row.
Those seats are normally chargeable, but they gave it to us free of cost.
The flight was really nice and comfortable. The staff was friendly. The entire airport experience, flight experience was quite easy. And it opened us to the possibility of doing this more often.
Yeah, for the first flight experience, it was pretty smooth.
So we traveled for 7 days. We were 5 people. Disha, myself, my parents, and my brother. We got an accessible RCI hotel. All the basic.
It was like an apartment,
yeah.
2 rooms.
It wasn't very fancy. It was quite basic, but it served our purpose. I remember roaming the city pretty much everywhere. Most places they had were wheelchair accessible. Doors over there are quite wide. They have lifts wherever required. They have ramps. And it being a modern city, that's a huge advantage if somebody is trying to travel for the first time in a wheelchair. The only thing I think I skipped, which you went to, is the dune bashing, right? So they have these sand dunes and they take you on a 4x4 and they drive the heck out of it and you spend an evening on the dunes.
For the sand dunes, they explained that if anybody has any issue related to the back or any back problem or back pains, then it's not recommended for
It's
them.
not advisable because they've even had their RTVs turn over.
And I'm very fond of RTV rides and all, so I didn't want to miss that. So we decided to basically split the group into 2. So 3 of us, Adeep's dad, brother and me went for the RTV ride to the desert. And Adeep and his mom, they went to explore, the Palm Jumeirah.
We went to Burj Al Arab,
Burj Al Arab.
the hotel. And we had a fantastic time there. It was amazing.
By this time, we were like, अब तो पूरा चौड़ में थे कि बस अब तो हम
चौड़ में नहीं, but yeah, we were confident that we can travel internationally. Interestingly, in the same year, my office decided to send me to New York, and that was a whole different ball game because suddenly the distance is very different. The
Time
flight
zone.
duration is very different. You're in a very different time zone, so don't know how body will respond to that. It was an interesting challenge, and yeah, we took it up.
So basically now for this US trip, the level of planning and preparation was completely different.
As was the excitement.
Yes, definitely. So then we got talking to the airlines that which flight we should take, कहाँ पे transit होना चाहिए, for how long the transit should be, because we have medical procedures which we need to do during the travel. So ये सब करते करते we figured out a flight option which worked for us. At least at that time we thought it will. And उसके बाद we booked Airbnb in New York, and ये सब was a very new experience क्योंकि इतना लंबा flight तो कभी लिया नहीं था.
So we had never been to the US. The farthest we had gone to, I think, was London.
Yeah,
Both
even
you and I,
before
right?
the accident,
Yeah,
we
even
had
before
never
the
traveled.
accident, we had never been to the States. So
Yeah.
it was quite wild. It was literally the wild, wild west. So the travel involved more than 24 hours of sitting door to door. I made it. So that was awesome.
A lot of insecurities and fears कि वहाँ जाके wheelchair time पे नहीं मिली, luggage time पे नहीं मिला, तो क्या करेंगे, कैसे
Yeah.
करेंगे?
Yeah.
But slowly सब कुछ समझ आने लगा कि कैसे
Yeah.
करना है.
Yeah. Thanks to my family being there again, we were able to see New York nicely. They have walkways, sidewalks, but the sidewalks are not exactly smooth and they're not exactly flat. They have a gradient, and at the same time, some of them are broken. So it was not possible for me to drive my wheelchair all through those sidewalks. And so my family took turns in driving me. So one of the things New York City had just started doing back then was starting to introduce wheelchair-friendly cabs. I wish we could have that in Delhi. But I think we're very far away from reaching that sort of social consciousness where you say, we need to take care of people who are disabled. We learned a lot of things from this US trip as well. One of the things was that we need like a 4-hour transit. Especially depending on the airport. So if you're traveling through like a Heathrow airport, then I need to have like a 4-hour transit because that airport is humongous and they have terminals that are very far away. The security procedures are very, very thorough.
And another thing is that in any flight travel, we are always the first to board and the last to get off the plane.
Yeah.
So इसीलिए transit अगर बहुत छोटा होता है, so then it's very difficult to catch the next flight.
Correct. And the other thing we've learned to take care about is like the security procedure of different airports.
So usually अगर 3 घंटे रखते हैं लोग, तो हम 4 घंटे रखते हैं, because security, luggage, wheelchair, ये सब manage करने में extra time लगता है. So we always keep that margin, and that sort of eases the anxiety. Something is not going smooth, so it gives us time.
Yeah. So that in a nutshell is how we've sort of taken our journey from being at home / hospital to going for lunch, to starting to do more of those and do sort of day travels locally, to then do night stays outside, first close by and then further out, start doing road trips, to a flight trip locally or internationally, and then starting to do longer flights and basically opening up the possibilities of traveling for you. Because traveling is great. It gives you amazing perspective of the world. It takes you out of your rut and actually gives you a different space to be in. That is very healthy. So I would recommend that, if there are people in the wheelchair who are struggling with travel, please reach out to whomever your friends, family, ask them how they can do it. You're free to reach out to us as well. Please write in the comments if you want to say something or ask us some questions about it, or just talk about your experience. It'll be fantastic to hear from you.
Yeah, and अब ये देख के लगता है in hindsight that this was a very good idea and a good way to take things slowly, but keep taking things to the next step.
Wheel the world.
Yeah, roll with us. So that was it for this video, and we really hope that you enjoyed it. So like, comment, and share, and see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.